In today's video, we're going to take a dive into the Cedar City and St. George, Utah housing market to give you an idea of what is currently happening in these two markets right now to see if it's the right time for you to buy or sell. My name is Elizabeth Prisbrey. I'm with Stratum Real Estate Group. If you are looking to buy or sell here in Southern Utah, I would love to help you out with that. Please feel free to call, text, or email anytime. That contact information is down below in the description. Now, it's the beginning of August 2025. We're going to take a look at the last 10 years for these two markets for the month of July. So we're going to take everything through July 31st, year over year for the last 10 years to give you an idea of where these markets have been, where they currently are, and kind of take a look at where we think they might be heading. Now I've jumped into some slides to give you a visual of what this looks like. We're going to take a look at Cedar City first. Cedar City and St. George are a little bit different. However, they are only 45 minutes apart. They are both considered a desert, but Cedar City is a high desert, which means it will get 4 mild seasons. The population here is roughly around 40,000 people. St. George has around 110,000 people. It's 45 minutes south of Cedar City and about 15 degrees warmer throughout the year. Now we're going to take a look at the market as a whole right now in Cedar City. We have new listings. That's everything that came to the market in the month of July. We have active listings here in red. That is everything that is currently on the market. Pending in purple, everything that went into contract in the month of July, and sold in green, everything that closed out in the month of July. So remember, this is only the month of July year over year. We like to take a look at the same month year over year because real estate tends to be seasonal. There are different times in the year when you will see a huge shift and you will see more buyers in the market, more sellers in the market. There will also be times in the year where that will die out, usually around the holidays. So we don't want to be comparing July to December because that's going to look very different. What I want to point out though is where we are in 2025. You can see our active listings in Cedar City are up to 346. That is quite a bit higher than we have seen in the last 10 years, with the highest being in 2016, right around 300. So we are up higher than we've been in a very long time in Cedar City. That means we have more properties available for buyers that are out there, which means that's more properties for you to choose from. Now, our new listings have gone up over the last 2 years. So in 2023, that's really where we saw the lowest. That trended up in 2024 as well as in 2025, which has of course impacted those active listings. Active is going to hold over homes from other months that didn't sell in the month they were listed in. So this new here, we have 124 new properties that came to the market in July. This one, it's comparable to 2020. We had the exact same number come to the market in 2020 as we did this last month. Other than that, those are the two highest times. So it's not unheard of, but it is higher than we've seen for the last few years, helping that inventory go up. Now we did see pending go up a little bit from last year, pretty comparable to 2023. Pending is still pretty low for the last 5 years. We saw a spike in 2020 at 148. Again, pending went into contract. And then our sold here, we have 66. This is the lowest we've been in the last 10 years. So as those closed sales go down and the new sales go up, that gives us our active listings in the market. So this is kind of a full picture of what's happening here in the current Cedar City market. Now, I also like to show you the days on market. Again, this is for Cedar City. This means how long a home is sitting on the market before it goes into contract or before it goes pending. I like to take a look at the median and the average just to give you an idea. Median is going to be right in the middle. That means half of the homes took less time than this to sell. Half of the homes took more time than this to sell. Average is going to take all of the homes, add them up, and divide it by the number of homes that you added up. This is also good to look at because it can give you an idea of how long some of these homes are sitting on the market. If you have homes sitting on the market for well over a year, that is going to skew this number here. So currently, our median days on market is 31, just about at a month there. It's exactly the same as last year at 31 days on market. Prior to that, pretty similar to 2017 and 2018. As far as average days, we're at 57, huge jump from last year from 42 days on market. But in 2023, we were at 54. Now, again, this isn't unheard of for average. Yes, we had huge dips down here in 2021 as we saw people migrating to Cedar City and our mortgage interest rates were still low. But if we never had these few years here, 2020, 2021, and then 2022, where those mortgage interest rates started going up, You would see probably a pretty similar trajectory across the last 10 years with some slight fluctuations. St. George has a very similar trend. Again, we have new in blue, active in red, pending in purple, and sold in green. Our active listings in St. George to end out July, 752, quite a bit higher than they've been in the last 10 years, the highest being in 2016 at 663. So from 663 to 752, that is quite an increase in our active listings in St. George. Last year in 2024, we had 608. So that has gone up well over 100 active listings for the month of July in the last year. Our new listings actually went down though. So that tells us that some of these homes have definitely been sitting on the market for quite a while. Our new listings are at 256, pretty comparable over the last 10 years, slight dip in 2023, slight dip in 2021. But if you were to follow it across, that's pretty normal for what usually comes to the market in the month of July for St. George. Our pending listings did go up. They were 156 last year in 2024. We are up to 195 this year. That looks better than it has for the last several years. 2022, 2023, 2024, all pretty similar. So seeing more pendings now in St. George tells us that there are still buyers in the market. They are still making offers. As far as those closed sales go, we're at 171, slightly down from 182 last year, but still above 2022 and 2023. These last 4 years, as we've watched this market start to correct from when those mortgage interest rates went up, are a good indication of how stable this market is. Yes, we can compare them to 10 years ago to see what it possibly would be if we didn't have this crazy time here in 2020 and 2021. So taking a larger look at this market as a whole and comparing it over the last 10 years to really get a good idea of how stable it is will be helpful as we move forward through these slides. Same thing, days on market for St. George, median is going to be in green, average is going to be in red. For St. George in 2025, to end out July, we have 37 days, median days on market. We have 69 days for our average days on market. Average is usually higher than our median because it does take into account some outlying properties that have been sitting on the market for quite a while. Now, these days on market, as well as the absorption rate, which we're going to jump into next, are really important for both buyers and sellers. It gives you a really good picture of how healthy this market is. If you're a seller and you're listing your home and you're going past what the median days on market is for homes in your category. Now, I say this because this is a broad picture. Now, let's say you have a home that you're listing around $500,000. Now, we want to look at other homes that are similar, comparable to your home to get a good idea of how long those homes are sitting on the market. This is general for the entire market. It gives you a starting point. It tells you what kind of data you should be looking at. But if you are going to list your home, you want to look at homes that are comparable to yours to get a good idea of how long are these homes sitting on the market. Are there homes that are sitting way past this? Are there homes that are sitting less than this? Where do I need to list my home to be competitive so that mine isn't sitting here for months and months and months, losing appeal and ultimately not getting me my top dollar for my home? If you are a buyer, you're looking at these same stats. You are working closely with your agent so that they can run these comps and let you know if a home has been sitting for a long time in this category. This will let you know what kind of negotiating power you have and if this home is listed competitively. So that's why we like to look at all of these components when we are researching the market for both the buyer and the seller. Now, the absorption rate, we're going to look at both Cedar City and St. George together. This is your month's inventory. This means that if nothing changed in the market today, meaning no new listings were added to the market, it would take this many months to sell off the current inventory. We have Cedar City here ending out July with 5.2 months supply of inventory. We have St. George here ending out with 4.41 months of inventory. You can see Cedar City is up quite a bit higher than it's been for the last 9 years, with only 2016 being higher at 5.45 months. We have St. George, the highest that it's been in the last 10 years. So our inventory is really getting up there. This is actually a good thing for our market. You saw when things dipped down so low in 2021, we saw our home prices double in both of these locations because there wasn't enough inventory to meet the demand. If we take a look at what what typically happens with our month's inventory, if you have less than 6 months of inventory, you have a seller's market and those home prices tend to appreciate. If you have between 6 to 7 months, it's usually pretty neutral or balanced. So the home prices will continue to appreciate. If you have more than a 7-month supply, then those home prices do tend to depreciate. I would say right between 5 to 7 months, that's where we have a more balanced market, meaning both sellers and buyers have negotiating power. So I want you to keep that in mind as we look at the sales price for these two markets. Now, Cedar City, again, we've got median in blue, we've got average in red. We have the median sales price here just over $422,000. We have the average sales price here just over $454,000. You can see over the last 2 years, Cedar City has continued to appreciate. We had huge appreciation from 2020 to 2021 and 2021 to 2022. Slight dip from 2022 to 2023 when we saw those mortgage interest rates go up, but you can see we've still had a steady incline of appreciation just like we did from 2016 to 2017 to 2018. This is why I give you 10 years to look at so that you can compare the inventory that we had in these two markets, the stability, so that you know what to expect. St. George's sales price looks a little bit different. Again, median here in green, average here in red. For 2025, we are sitting right around $510,000 for a median sales price and a little over $566,000 for an average sales price. What's notable about St. George is it's stayed pretty steady from 2022 to 2025. We were just over $523,000 in 2022, $531,000 in 2023, close to $525,000 in 2024, and then we just had this slight dip from 2024 to 2025 of about $15,000. Prior to that, St. George was on a steady increase up with the exception of 2018 to 2019, then skyrocketed from $340,000 up to over $471,000 in 1 year. Now, what I want to know about St. George is St. George has some large, massive, beautiful homes that are up into the multi-millions. So it is going to skew the average prices here quite a bit. You can see that there are less of those that are turning over. So that is going to bring that average price down because when you're taking into account average, you're taking into extreme prices on both ends. That's why I really like to look at the median to see what these markets look like. So while we've seen the median sales price go slightly down over the last few years in St. George, we haven't seen any huge dips. Keep that in mind as we move forward through these slides. So now that you have a good idea of what these two markets look like locally, I want to give you some stats for nationally. You can see in both of these markets, the buyer and seller dynamic has shifted. Nationally though, back in 2024, both buyers and sellers were kind of around in the same place. So in the last year, we've seen sellers skyrocket to over 1.9 million. We've seen buyers drop down to around 1.4 million. Give or take, I'm rounding here. So we are seeing this both locally and nationally that more sellers are coming back to the market. The sellers is what increased dramatically. Buyers have kind of been hanging around in this same vicinity since 2023. So it's really the sellers that are changing this market right now. But what we really want to look at is the difference between the two. There are fewer buyers than there are sellers currently. The Associated Press has said fewer buyers means less competition for home listings and more pressure on sellers to dial back their asking price and make other concessions to help get a deal done. That's a stark reversal from just a few years ago when it wasn't uncommon for homeowners to receive offers well above their asking price for multiple home shoppers. So if you are a seller, read this again. It is very, very important to you because what I am seeing in the market currently is that if you are pricing your home too high or you are pricing it to see what you can get because you could have gotten it a few years ago, that's not the game plan. It's going to sit. It's not going to be shown. If it is shown, it's not going to get an offer. And if it does get an offer, it's going to be a super low offer compared to your asking price because it is still going to be dependent on the comps. Our buyers out here they're smart. And if they're paired with a good agent, they're even smarter. So keep that in mind. Look at the comps with your agent. Look at the data. Make sure that you are pricing your home appropriately for the market that we are currently in. Otherwise, it's pointless to list your home. Another thing to take a look at, we saw that Cedar City's median sales price was continuing to go up. St. George is kind of sitting around the same area, but did go down from last year to this year. What I want you to see nationally is that home price growth is decelerating. So this is the percent change in national home prices year over year. Decelerating is not the same as depreciating. That just means that our home prices aren't appreciating as fast as they had. 2021, they appreciated over 18% in 1 year. July 2023, really no appreciation. Now in May of 2025, right around 1% appreciation year over year. It doesn't mean homes are depreciating. It means that they aren't appreciating at as fast a rate. Now, we have a lot of well-known sources that have predicted how much they expect these homes to appreciate. This is on a national scale. The average here is 1.9%. So that's still appreciation. It's just not a huge growth. Again, this is nationally. It's going to come back to the local market, but I've just shown you all the local data for these two cities to help you see what kind of market you are currently in. Now, I always want to take a little bit of a look at our mortgage interest rates because this is really what pushes our market one way or the other. We now have a lot of sellers coming back to the market, but we don't have as many buyers, and that has to do with the mortgage interest rates. Mortgage interest rates have been higher than we saw in 2020, 2021 for the last several years. And so it has allowed time for that inventory to move up because it has pushed so many buyers out of the market. Now, these are projections from Fannie Mae, MBA, Wells Fargo. This is pretty much for the next year. So quarter 3 and 4 for 2025, quarters 1 and 2 for 2026. You can see the average of all three of those. They're expecting the mortgage interest rate not to have a whole ton of fluctuation over the next year, still staying in the mid sixes. So as far as projections go, not a huge change over the next year. I spoke with a lender yesterday. They don't see a huge change happening in those in the next 2 years. So that's something to think about if you are thinking of purchasing a home. Now, those were projections, but I do want to take a look at the Freddie Mac website just to get a look at what the average is. Now, it's currently August 6th. This hasn't been updated since July 31st. They have the average for a 30-year fixed mortgage sitting at 6.72%. You can see it still stayed roughly in those sixes over the last year with a dip here down to the low sixes back in September, and then a jump here to the low sevens in January. Just kind of gives you an idea of where we are currently at. I also like to take a look at the inflation rate. Inflation has gone up. Remember, this is always a month behind, so this is ending June. It's gone up to 2.67%. They like to see that inflation rate at 2%, so that's likely why we have not seen those mortgage interest rates come down. All right, so the takeaway from all of this data is that sellers, make sure you are looking at that data, make sure you are looking at those comps, and you are pricing your home correctly right from the beginning so that you can get top dollar for that home. Buyers, you have a lot more inventory at your fingertips now than you have had in the last 9 to 10 years. So now really is the time to get out there and find the home that is right for you, one that you can afford, one that you can make the payments on. Mortgage interest rates fluctuate all the time. If you wait for those mortgage interest rates to drop, you are going to have a lot of buyers coming back to the market at the same time. At that point, you could run into multiple offers, bidding up the home, and not getting the home that you actually want. So now is the time when you really have your pick of the market and you don't have to be racing to get that done. All right, remember, my name is Elizabeth Prisbrey. I'm with Stratum Real Estate Group. I really would love to help you make a move here to Southern Utah or help you sell your home. Please don't hesitate to reach out. I promise you I will respond. All right, until next time, have a wonderful day.